So, last week, NIO had quite a significant sell-off, finishing deep in the red, and in this video, I want to give you my quick thoughts about a couple of rumors around NIO and how they possibly impact the share price, and more of the macro picture and how I'm investing these days, and ultimately give you my thoughts on why I really think that this has happened. And for this, I'm going to show you a couple of discussions we're having in our Dongxi Patreon community. If you are not yet a Patreon member and you want to consider to be part of this community, please check out patreon.com/Dongxi, where you can support us as a creator. Otherwise, please make sure to hit the like button and support this video, because this is really helping us. First off, in this community, I outlined that I think after NIO Day, when markets open, we will possibly go to the $65. I also mentioned that in my last video on the market open, and possibly hit some resistance there, and may see either that we break this resistance and from there on go further up, or we go back down, and ultimately this is what we've done, unfortunately. Now, during that week after NIO Day, we had a couple of news that may have some implications on the stock price. For instance, rumors around Cheng, the co-founder of NIO, that has previously, retired, resigned, broke up with NIO. We don't really know the details. If you remember, I once managed to do an interview with him in CES in Shanghai, and now he is going to start a new position with Foxconn, which is currently rumored around creating with, for instance, with Geely, but also maybe with the backing of Apple, who knows, their own venture into the electric mobility world. For me, that isn't a reason why the stock tanked. I don't think that there is a lasting implication of Cheng going from NIO to Foxconn. And the reason for that is that Cheng, he didn't have any more to say in the operations with NIO after his leaving, although he's been still an advisor, but I don't think that in the operational world he still had much to say. Although what is interesting is possibly his links to XPT. So that's the company that's now 100% owned by NIO, and is kind of doing the skateboard and the battery technology, as well as the EV platform for NIO. And Cheng, he's been one of the founders of this company, so he has all of the contacts, he has all of the deeper know-how of the industry and so on. And this is possibly why he is now sought after by Foxconn. And I would actually rather spin this into some positive news, because as we know, XPT's plans are actually also to supply other companies beyond NIO. And that's also something that is actually hidden under NIO here in some potential, that they possibly start selling, for instance, their motors or their skateboards and something like that to other companies, maybe Foxconn, who knows, and actually NIO would be profiting from that. So in my views, no negative implications of that news on NIO stock price. Then remember, right after NIO Day, we had a new offering, a convertible, and actually the terms have been really good in my point of view, so not much of interest to pay, very long term, and then also with a 50% premium on the price for the lenders to actually convert into shares. So with these terms, NIO can actually use this new capital in order to fund more expansion and growth, or even to improve their financial situation and paying back some older loans or bonds that they have and that are at far less preferential terms, to be honest. So in my point of view, the convertible should rather be positive news for NIO here, because it strengthened their position. I agree the timing might be a little bit suspicious in terms of, right after NIO Day on the positive news, but as we've seen, the convertibles being oversubscribed and once again at those preferential terms, I would rather say that now everything is fixed. This should rather have positive implications on NIO stock price. Then we have the ongoing rumor about a NIO factory. So you see a post here from one of our Patreon community members here who outlined and asked around this new factory. And yes, these are credible signs that there is some bidding going on and some expansion work. And this is what it is in my views. It looks really a lot like this is expansion work of NIO and JAC together. So it doesn't look like to me like this might be, NIO's own factory or something that they do in order to get out of the partnership with JSC. I rather see it as an expansion that might be due in the next 2 to 3 years in order to build additional capacity. For instance, maybe using it for the ET7 as a standalone production line there, and thereby making it possible to increasing the capacity of the overall site that they have there. And this actually would be in line with the business case in my point of view. So I do not expect any positive or negative implication on this kind of rumor and news around NIO stock. Now let's come to what I think ultimately has led to this really big sell-off here and this pullback in NIO stock price. The first one is, and I'm part of this, the expiry of NIO call options. Last Friday there was an expiry date for call options, and this is usually when you also see a larger movement in the stock price for people that are, for instance, like me, cashing out or exercising their options actually into common stock. So these are possibly a couple of call option bidders here that have been speculating around NIO day, and so there might have been higher volume. Actually, I didn't check that even, but generally options expiry dates have big implications on the share price, and in that case I think maybe part of the reason why we saw such a big movement on Friday. Now I was lucky that NIO day turned out the way I was expecting it to do, with some surprises, and thereby also increasing the share price well above the $50 strike that I bought my options for. So I was happy to be more than 400% in the plus with this trade, and these are some of those short-term bets that I'm doing besides my only buy and hold long-term position in NIO. Now, what I think is the true underlying issue here, why NIO has seen this pullback, and not only NIO, frankly, is the question marks around China. So we have new COVID cases in China that are coming up. Plus, we still have the issue around delisting of Chinese stocks. And last week we had, for instance, a big surprise with Xiaomi, the cell phone and household maker, also being added to that list, and possibly a ban for US investors to invest in this stock, although it's listed at Hong Kong Stock Index. And in my point of view, that was kind of a surprise, but what I'm expecting with this news is actually that it's going to be reverted, because, we have this news about stock delistings a couple of times, and as I'm always preaching on this channel, my views is that only those really state-owned enterprises in China will actually be affected from this Kennedy bill. And ultimately, these are also the companies, for instance, like China Mobile and so on, that are going to stay and up at this list, and with a possible ban for US investors to invest in them, or even a delisting. And for most of the other stocks, I think that will not be an issue, and I actually expect the same situation for Xiaomi to revert. Now, it still sent kind of a shockwave, I would say, and in combination with that stocks have been running up quite high in the beginning of this month, I think there was also lots of profit taken in those stocks, and particularly stocks like NIO that have high growth and are quite volatile. They see more of a profit taken by investors, and that's why we see a larger pullback in NIO shares. But generally, we saw it overall in Chinese shares across the board. But as I'm saying here, this is also about my macroeconomic view here. We see really positive numbers about GDP growth in China, about the economy in general. And I'm not really worried too much about those COVID fears in China. So in general, my proposition stays up here that I think China is deeply undervalued. Chinese stocks that are listed in the US usually have a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt around it, and thereby are depressed in terms of the share prices. And this is why I think even in 2021, they keep on being an opportunity for savvy investors that can look beyond those fears and doubts. Because once again, when it comes to, for instance, delisting, I think ultimately you own a share and a piece of that company, and it doesn't matter whether or not US investors can invest in it or not, or where this company is listed. If the company will keep doing well over time and it will be traded somewhere, then I also expect in the long run that share prices will recover, even though we have such pullbacks, for instance, from institutional investors, from pension funds and so on, that are kind of obliged to pull out of such a stock. But for instance, in the case of NIO, I'm pretty certain that even if NIO were to be delisted at some point in time and possibly do a relisting in Hong Kong, and even if US investors would be barred from doing new investments in that stock, I am quite confident that NIO, in the end, if they execute on their plans, if they mature as a company, they would actually be doing well wherever they are listed. So in my point of view, this is an opportunity, and therefore I keep on digging and identifying such opportunities in the future. As you know, I'm not going to invest in each and every stock that I see out there. However, stay tuned and become a Patreon or maybe even a NIO gang member, so you can join the community network that we have, where we can discuss such opportunities. And then also obviously later on I'm gonna talk on it here on the channel. So thank you guys for watching. See you in the next one, and yeah, have a good week.